بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Last night on live stream, a question came in regarding book stamps and the importance of having a stamp for your books, being a student of knowledge or being a studious layman Muslim who has a personal library, no matter how big or how small. What is the importance of having a stamp, stamping your books? What is the significance of this stamp, of that stamp? And also some of the stamps that we were given as gifts by some of the disciples and the disciples, and showing them these stamps, so on and so forth. So we spoke about that last night. And we also spoke about that previously. And before we get started on tonight's lesson, another very important aspect of the book culture and the disciplism way, the way of the disciple, is not just a book stamp, but also a bookmark. Bookmarks are equally as important, or maybe secondarily important to the book stamp. Obviously, the book stamp personalizes your book. The book stamp, by Allah's permission, is a step in ensuring that the book won't be stolen. I've seen people rip out pages before, or I've seen people stamp over top of stamps. Rather, I've stamped over stamps before. Not saying that the book was stolen, but the book was inherited, left behind. It was abandoned in Medina, or someone gives you a gift, or you buy the book from a bookstore that has its own stamp and you stamp on top of it. You understand? It's like having a tattoo. You have a tattoo of somebody's name, and they say, no, I don't want that. It costs too much money to get the tattoo removed, so you do what? Cover it with their name. It's not a foreign concept. So the stamp has many advantages. But the bookmark also has an advantage, and it's very important to have bookmarks. I want to show you something that was a gift, alhamdulillah, another gift. It was given to me by a close friend of mine in Medina. It was a personalized book stamp. Alhamdulillah, it's authentic, 100% genuine leather. And obviously we know the sunnah of giving gifts. Tahabu, he says, tahadu tahabu. Give gifts and you'll love each other. Giving a small, simple, basic token of appreciation, love, and respect can do a lot for a human being. Tahadu tahabu. Give gifts and you'll love each other. And we know when you give someone a gift, especially someone who is aziz alik, someone who means a lot to you, Allah knows best. It's not wrong giving them an expensive gift, but you should never try to match and equal their worth as a friend. You mean too much to me than any material possession can buy. The most expensive thing can't come close to what you mean to me as a friend and as a brother. So therefore, I'm not even going to try and attempt. So there's a small, simple token of my appreciation and my respect. Bismillah. Very important concept of gifts. And oftentimes you give someone a gift that's so expensive and too expensive, sometimes it can be taken the wrong way. And sometimes it can be inappropriate, especially if it's a close person, someone that you're really close with. Step number 2 is the practicality of the gift. You don't want to give someone a gift that's just going to sit in a box. The best gifts are the gifts which are most practical, that a person uses on a daily basis, and every time you look at your watch or pick up, you say, oh, alhamdulillah, he brought me a gift. And you think about that person, and you make dua for that person. You never want to just give someone a gift just want to sit there and collect dust and rust. Unless there's a variety of gifts that you've given them. And this is a special gift that you only wear once, or you only ride once, or you only rock once. But the gift that I really want to get you, that's something that's going to be on your wrist, or in your wallet, or on your back, on a daily basis. Something that you won't forget me, and make dua for me. So this was, alhamdulillah, a bookmark. You see it's very fine, alhamdulillah, it's very nice, it's handmade. And this is one style of a bookmark that you can have. You can put it in a book like this, It's a little bulky, but it has advantages, okay? And of course, there are other bookmarks, paper bookmarks, handmade bookmarks, make your own bookmarks. And it's very important to use bookmarks. And that's because you may think that you can go back and find a piece of information. You may think you remember where it is, and you may remember it, but a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, you'll need that bookmark. You need to make a note. You need to write it down. You need to put a stick or a stamp. Let alone the fact that oftentimes you may read a book, you open it up, you close it, and you forget where you are. So bookmarks, they have their place. And whenever you go to a bookstore, whether it's a used bookstore, some of my personal favorites, some of the best books you find in used bookstores, or whether it's a modern bookstore or a conventional bookstore, always make sure that they give you book stamps. If you're a real reader and a book connoisseur, never leave any bookstore without bookmarks. Make sure that they give you some bookmarks, whether they're for free or whether you have to buy them. Every time you buy a book or buy books, you should also get more bookmarks. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And alhamdulillah, a couple years ago, we've put together some HadithDisciple bookmarks as well, giving them out as gifts. Some people bought some of them to enhance and to further the culture of being a bookworm, which is extremely important for a student of knowledge. And many people who go overseas and study overseas or they travel overseas, they're not really studious and they're not true bookworms. And that's obviously a major reason behind flaw and error. People depending on what's being said, people depending on what's being spoken, and that, instead of actually digging in the books, fi butunil kutub, they say in the bellies of the books, and digging through an old dusty, crusty library and finding the information yourself, and going to the authentic source, and not sufficing yourself with what a modern day person is saying or telling you. Everyone understand this? Let alone the fact that the more you read, the less you'll talk. The more you read, the less you'll talk. You guys don't have too much time to chit chat and gossip. I have books to read. There's no time for me to read this 500-page book, let alone this 20-volume book. Also, the more books you read, the less connected you are to specific personalities and individuals. And we know that knowledge in Islam is supposed to be taken from the mouth. It's supposed to be taken from the teacher. There's no question about that. But it doesn't mean that there's no value of books. And the Quran is full of ayat that talk about kutub, books that they yadrusuna, that they studied. Allah cursed the Yahud because they wrote false books and attributed those books to Allah. That's why they were cursed. And if they'd actually written down the Torah that was revealed to Musa, they wouldn't have been cursed. It wouldn't have been a problem. So the concept of the pen, Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun, allama bil qalam, Allah taught by the pen. Verse after verse, Allah talks about the pen. Allah talks about suhuf, scrolls, noble scrolls, pure scrolls, mutahhara. Allah speaks about these things, and Allah also talks about books. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions about the Yahud as well. Those who did not fulfill the covenant that was upon them, they did not handle the responsibility that was placed on their shoulders. كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. Allah says it's like a donkey that carries books. And there's nothing wrong with the donkey. And there's nothing wrong with the books. But that's not how a human is supposed to be. In which a human has books and doesn't benefit from those books. Alright? So books are very, very important in Islam and life. In Islam, and let alone the way of the disciple. Buy as many books as you can. Personalize those books. Have your book stamps. Have your bookmarks. Read those books. Reference those books. Memorize those books. Become one with those books. Extremely important. That's it. But let's get into it. Fadl.
What is a book stamp?
A book stamp. You gotta watch the video, Sheikh. Maybe I'll bring you one. Inshallah. Bi-idhnillah. You want mechanical or wooden?
I have no idea.
Say no more. Bi-idhnillah. Abshir. Abshir, huh? Inshallah. Right. All right. That's the first announcement. Announcement number 2 is, we mentioned before that those who want to get the explanation of this book that we've done already, it's on the channel. One of the earliest playlists that we made was the explanation of 40 Hadith of Nawawi. And at that time when I made that announcement, I had forgotten that we also explained the book another time when we were in Toronto, maybe a year ago. And it's on Institute channel. Sheikh Sajid, Allah bless him and bless his channel, Sajid Lipham. We made an accelerated version of the Sharh. The whole entire book is explained simply, easily. I think maybe in like an hour or less than an hour and some change, something like that. So this will be our 3rd time explaining the 40 Hadith of Nawawi. So you can go back to either of those 2 explanations. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Khairan, inshallah. So we mentioned about Nawawi's life and some of the beneficial points from his life. Alhamdulillah, we'll suffice ourselves with that which we mentioned. Now we're going to get into the introduction of the author himself. A Nawawi's introduction. And that's also another very important tool for the student of knowledge, is to always read the introduction to the book. Never skip an introduction, ever. You may skip some of the book. You may not read the entire book. You may skim through the book. But 2 things that you cannot afford to skip is the introduction and the table of contents. Always. If you have 1,000 books, make sure that you read every introduction and make sure you skim and look through the contents or the index. Extremely, crucially important. And many questions that you have about the book, about the author, when he wrote it, how he wrote it, where does the book come from, is already answered in the actual introduction. You understand this? And we all know the famous proverb or cliche, صاحب الدار أدرى بما فيها. The owner of the house knows the house better than anyone else. The owner of the house, he knows what's in the house more than anyone else. So you want to know how to benefit from the book, how authentic are the hadiths in the book? Let's ask the one who made the book first, instead of someone who comments on it or who explains it. Khairan inshallah. So Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Qayyum as-samawati wal-aradeen, Mudabbir al-khalaqi ajma'een, باعث الرسل صلواته وسلامه عليهم إلى المكلفين لهدايتهم وبيان شرائع الدين بالدلائل القطعية وواضحة البراهين. أحمده على جميع نعمه وأسأله المزيد من فضله وكرمه. وأشهد أن سيدنا محمد عبده ورسوله وحبيبه وخليله أفضل المخلوقين المكرم بالقرآن العزيز المعجزة المستمرة على تعاقب السنين وبالسنن المستنيرة للمسترشدين المخصوص بجوامع الكلم وسماحة الدين. صلوات الله والسلام عليه وعلى سائر النبيين والمرسلين وآل كل والسائر الصالحين. أما بعد، فقد روينا عن علي بن أبي طالب وعبد الله بن مسعود ومعاذ بن جبل وأبي الدرداء وابن عمر وابن عباس وأنس بن مالك وأبي هريرة وأبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنهم من طرق كثيرات بروايات متنوعات أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من حفظ على أمتي 40 حديثا من أمر دينها بعثه الله يوم القيامة في زمرة الفقهاء والعلماء. وفي رواية بعثه الله فقيها عالما. وفي رواية أبي الدرداء: وكنت له يوم القيامة شافعا وشهيدا. وفي رواية ابن مسعود: قيل له ادخل من أي أبواب الجنة شئت. وفي رواية ابن عمر: كتب في زمرة العلماء وحشر في الشهداء. واتفق الحفاظ على أنه حديث ضعيف وإن كثرت طرقه. وقد صنف العلماء رضي الله عنهم في هذا الباب ما لا يحصى من المصنفات. He says, after praising Allah, declaring Allah's oneness, Allah's perfection, and sending prayers and salutations upon the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, he speaks about a hadith that's very famous and popular. A hadith that's been reported by several companions. And this hadith states that whoever memorizes for my ummah 40 hadiths will be resurrected as a great scholar of Islam. Whoever has 40 hadiths which he memorizes and preserves and keeps for my ummah, Allah will resurrect him and raise him on the Day of Judgment as an alim and as a faqih, as an erudite scholar. And he mentions that this hadith has several different turuq, routes of transmission, but none of these routes, none of these isnads are authentic. None of them are authentic. He says the ulama of hadith unanimously agree that it is a da'if hadith. However, it is a famous hadith and a well-known narration. Why is he mentioning this? He's mentioning this to show you some of the reasons why he wrote this book. Number two, he's mentioning this hadith to show you some of the virtues of studying and memorizing his book. The virtue of preserving 40 hadiths for the Muslims. Now, we have the technicalities of the hadith, it being weak, but you look at the meaning of the hadith and the wisdom therein. Just think about it now. In this masjid or any masjid, there's a man or a woman who's walking around with 40 hadiths of the Prophet memorized by heart. There's a man walking around, a woman walking around with over 40 narrations of the Prophet of Islam that you know by heart. They have a basic, simple explanation of them. They realize, no, that's a great deal of knowledge. It's a great deal of knowledge. There's never a time in which an imam of a masjid or a student of knowledge on his summer break or a coach or a mentor, anyone, there's no time in which you're not prepared for khutbah. I'm supposed to come, I'm sick, I can't make it. Read, can you look after me? I'm sick. Sheikh, I'm not prepared. He He can give a whole entire khutbah off that one hadith. There's no preparation needed. And that hadith is more than enough for the people sitting in the masjid. There's never a time in which someone asks you to give a fa'idah, to give a talk. You come to a walima or an aqiqah. You come to a janazah and they want you to give a talk. There's never a time in which you're not prepared. You're out in the streets and now a Muslim asks you about Islam. Whatever the occasion, you're always prepared to give some type of benefit. Someone needs some type of advice, you can give them advice from those 40 hadith. So that's a tremendous virtue. And you may look at 40 hadith as being a small number. Sahih Bukhari, how many thousands of hadiths? Muwatta Malik, Musnad Ahmed, thousands of hadiths. What's 40 hadith? If you sit down and count hadith, 40 is a lot. And if I asked you right now, give me 40 statements from your grandfather. 40 of them. Could you do that if I asked you right now? 40 things that your grandfather said. You can mention a few things. Do this, pay attention, get a job, don't hang out on the corner, don't do this. But could you tell me 40 things that he told you specifically that are all sound and correct, that you've understood properly? Your father, a great, talented NBA basketball player. 40 points from this legendary coach. 40 things, 40 statements. Can you give them? 3, 5, 10. We were in this game. We were down. We were behind. I had a bad season. I tore my ACL. Blah, 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 blah. He helped me out. But can he give me 40 different points of wisdom from that coach? The reason why he can't is because 40 is a what? It's a healthy number if you actually sit down and think about it. And everything looks and sounds easy until you do it yourself. But 40 is not a small, simple number. Think about 40 hadiths you can tell me. The companion, who narrated, what's the text, and what it means. That's a lot of knowledge. And let alone the fact that you do it for yourself first and foremost. And second, you do it to help out the Muslims. So that's tremendous wisdom. There's no time in which you can't give someone prophetic advice and join the good and forbid the evil. Based off of the sunnah, directly. Bang. I Nabi Sa'id al-Khudri, qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Finished. That's it. Solid knowledge. So we see that the hadith, it being weak, but it being popular and famous, it has some type of what? Substance to it. And the ulama of Islam, they've quoted this hadith and they've passed it down for many years and many generations. But he said that it's not authentic. All right? That's first and foremost. Moving forward, he says here, and there are many scholars who wrote books on 40 hadiths. Ma la yuhsa. Says, I can't keep count how many scholars they wrote books on 40 hadith. And we benefit from this in 2019 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is never scorn yourself as a Muslim and never scorn yourself as a student of knowledge. And never take the position, why should I go study and Fulan studied? Why should I write a book and Fulan wrote a book? Why should I give a speech and there's a better person on YouTube who gives speeches? Never say these things. And if that was the attitude of Noe, he wouldn't have wrote this book. Scholars that were bigger, greater, who came before him, and they wrote that book. They wrote books on for the hadith. He says, I'm going to write mine. So never scorn yourself, never look down upon yourself. And you never know where the blessing of Allah lies. You never know where Allah's blessing will lie. And you never know, you may say something to one person that benefits that person, that helps that person, and be in that title with means of them being saved from the fire of hell. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, and it's very important for us to say this because we live in a culture in which this is the stigma of the people. Why should I do it if such and such did it? We live in a culture in which people wish to push and promote and stuff blind following down the people's throats. And they want the people to be drones. They want the people to be ants, walking in one single line, smelling one or some pheromones following the lead ant. They want this. And they don't want the people to think. They don't want the people to do anything. They don't want the people to break off and to branch off. So you have to be mindful. Don't scorn yourself. I'm young. I'm from America. I'm black. I'm this. I'm that. I'm that. Don't scorn yourself. You never know where Allah Azza wa Jalla will put barakah. And that was the attitude of Nawawi. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, فأول من علمته صنف فيه عبد الله بن المبارك ثم محمد بن أسلم الطوسي العالم الرباني ثم الحسن بن سفيان النسائي وأبو بكر الأجري وأبو بكر محمد بن إبراهيم الأصفهاني والدارقطني والحاكم وابن نعيم وأبو عبد الرحمن السلمي وأبو سعيد الماليني وأبو عثمان الصابوني وعبد الله بن محمد الأنصاري وأبو بكر البيهقي وخلائق لا يحصون من المتقدمين والمتأخرين. And he goes on to quote several scholars who all wrote books on 40 hadiths. from the past up to his day. من المتقدمين والمتأخرين. So one may say, Noe, why are you writing your book? That wasn't his attitude. Moving forward, he says, وقد استخرت الله تعالى جمع 40 حديث اقتداء بهؤلاء الأئمة الأعلام وحفاظ الإسلام. He says, and I sought Allah's guidance. I made istikhara. I sought Allah's guidance. I asked Allah to, and yukhayyirani, to Allah to give me the way to see which choice to make my own compilation. To imitate and to mimic those great ulama and those great scholars of Islam. And this also breaks and shatters the mental perversion that we live in of don't do nothing out of the way, just follow. When you do something out of the way, it says, oh, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? How are you to do this? How are you to answer your own questions? How are you to write your own book? How are you? How are you? You say, well, I'm trying to be like them. I'm trying to be like the ulama that we have to love and respect and follow. I'm imitating them. Is there a sin in that? Is there a problem in that? Jazakallahu khairan. And if that was the attitude of the ulama of Islam, no one would have written a book after a certain amount of years. Once the first book was written, khalas, it would have stopped. That was never their attitude. Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَقَدْ اتَّفَقَ الْعُلَمَاءُ عَلَى جَوَازِ الْعَمَلِ بِالْحَدِيثِ الضَّعِيفِ فِي فَضَائِلِ الْأَعْمَالِ ومع هذا فليس اعتمادي على هذا الحديث بل على قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأحاديث الصحيحة ليبلغ الشاهد منكم الغائب وقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم من نظر الله من سمع مقالتي فوعاها فأداها كما سمعها. He says, and the scholars of Islam have agreed upon the permissibility of acting upon weak hadiths when it comes to virtues. فضائل الأعمال. When it comes to virtues. He says that the scholars have unanimously agreed that it's permissible to act upon a hadith which is weak when it comes to a virtue. He didn't mention aqidah, Allah's names and attributes. He didn't mention halal and haram. He didn't mention tafsir of the Quran. He said fada'il. He said virtues. Dhikr, tasbih, salah, hajj, things like this, virtuous acts. And obviously that's a discussion in that statement. Is that absolute? Is that actually correct? Ittifaq, ijma'. We're not going to get into that right now. What you have is Nawawi saying that you can use the da'if hadith with regards to virtues. Moving forward. He says, and even though this is the reality, the hadith is da'if, and this is the ruling of it, he says, that's not the only thing that I'm dependent upon in writing this book. I have other sources and other proofs and evidences that I'm using to write this book. And from those proofs and evidences which are authentic, is the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's statement in Hajjatul Wada'. He says, let those who are present pass on the message to those who are absent. Let those who are here spread it to those who aren't here. And included in that is writing a book. Included in that is giving for the hadith. Let the student of knowledge who memorizes it go and tell his people. And he says in the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam's statement as well, may Allah brighten the face. May Allah put splendor in the face of one who hears my statement, memorizes it, and then passes it on as he heard it. And this is one of the most tremendous hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ with regards to the virtue of ashab al-hadith, the virtue of studying the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ professionally and systematically. And as a Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he would say, whenever I saw a hadith a student of hadith, he says they always see light in his face. You never find them with dark faces. There's always bloom in their faces because of the Prophet's dua. Those who hear what I have to say, they memorize it just as I heard it, correctly and accurately, and then they pass it on to others. They learn the sunnah and they do what? They spread the sunnah. Not like those, listen carefully, we have three things here, very important. Hearing it, memorizing it accurately, and passing it on accurately. So we have people who want to give da'wah and want to teach Islam. And that's a good thing. But they haven't heard the sunnah themselves correctly and properly. They haven't learned. And then we have those who do learn and study, but they don't want to teach. They don't want to spread it. And they come up with this excuse and that excuse and this reason and this principle and blah, 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 blah. Not to spread and teach the people who don't know the correct way. And then we have those who hear, who study, those who teach, but they're inaccurate. They don't do it kama sami'a as they heard it specifically. And this hadith is a tremendous principle for the organic way of learning and studying hadiths. It's to take the rulings directly from the hadith, just as you hear it. Moving forward, Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, ثم من العلماء من جمع الأربعين في أصول الدين وبعضهم في الفروع وبعضهم في الجهاد وبعضهم في الزهد وبعضهم في الآداب وبعضهم في الخطب وكلها مقاصد صالحة رضي الله عن قاصديها. He says, and then the next step, those scholars who wrote books on 40 hadiths, they had different fields and different topics. There are those who wrote books on 40 hadiths pertaining to the creed of Islam, the belief system, the aqidah. 40 hadiths on Allah's attributes, 40 hadith on qadr, 40 hadith on this, 40 hadith on that. And then we have those who wrote 40 hadiths on fiqh issues, fiqh rulings, or principles of fiqh. And then we have those who wrote 40 hadiths on jihad, fi sabilillah, the virtue of fighting in Allah's cause. And some wrote 40 hadiths on zuhd, on divorcing the worldly life and its pleasures. And some wrote 40 hadiths on khutbahs, etc., etc., etc. He says, and all of these things are correct intentions. Listen carefully. Those who stick to one thing, who focus on one thing, who write about one thing, and no, he says it's all good. It doesn't just have to be one gear and one lane that the people have to write about and speak about. Listen carefully to these words. He says, وَكُلُّهَا مَقَاصِدُ صَحِيحًا. He says all of these things are correct. All of these intentions are correct. Everyone understand this? They're all correct. So we have people who say that you can only talk about one thing and you can't talk about this thing, or and you don't talk about this and you don't write about that. Well, if you've written 20 books on a subject and given 50 lectures on a subject, why do I have to do the exact same thing that you've done? Does that make any sense? Is Islam only one thing? Is Islam only one track? Is Islam only one direction? Rather, you write a book, I write a book, and we work together. You have a field, something that you like to talk about in your dawah, and I have things that I like to talk about in my dawah. And this is a very important concept to have, and I'm not talking about one group or one person. Many people, they have this. They say, oh, well, brother, on your channel, you need to talk about this and make the classes more easy and simple for these people. He has a channel in which he has the ABCs of Islam. I don't necessarily have to do the same thing that he's doing because everyone is not studying that. He has a channel in which he talks about, hypothetically speaking, just Tawheed and Aqidah. So therefore, I'm going to do a channel and talk about fiqh. And we'll all work together. As long as it's from the Kitab and the Sunnah, what's the problem? No, he says, وَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ جَمْعَ أَرْبَعِينَ أَهَمَّ مِنْ هَذَا كُلِّهِ. He says, and I saw to make my book even more excellent than those previous books. And it goes to show us once more, don't suffice yourself with what previous people did. And do not scorn yourself, and do not prevent yourself from excellence. He says, I want to go even higher than how they went. And I want to make my book comprehensive for all of those things. I want my book, my work to be on a higher plateau, a higher echelon. He says, وَهِيَ أَرْبَعُونَ حَدِيثًا مُشْتَمِلَةٌ عَلَى جَمِيعِ ذَلِكَ. He says, in my 40 hadith collection is going to be totally comprehensive on Tawheed, on fiqh, on jihad, on zuhd, kullu shay. Everything is going to be in my book. وَكُلُّ حَدِيثٍ مِنْهَا قَاعِدَةٌ عَظِيمَةٌ مِنْ قَوَاعِدِ الدِّينِ. He says, in every hadith from these hadiths in itself is a principle of the religion. Every single narration is a cornerstone of the deen. So just imagine you have these 40 hadiths memorized. You have a great deal of knowledge, a great deal of skill if you've memorized these hadiths by heart. He says, وَقَدْ وَصَفَهُ الْعُلَمَاءُ بِأَنَّ مَدَارَ الْإِسْلَامِ عَلَيْهِ أو نصف الإسلام أو ثلثه أو نحو ذلك. He says, in all of these hadiths that I've mentioned, the scholars of Islam, they said that this is half of the deen, or a third of the deen, or a fourth of the deen. In other words, every hadith by itself is a very, very, very huge chunk of Islam, let alone all of the hadiths put together collectively. No way, he says, ثم التزم في هذه الأربعين أن تكون صحيحة ومعظمها في صحيح البخاري ومسلم وأذكرها محذوفة الأسانيد ليسهل حفظها ويعم الانتفاع بها إن شاء الله تعالى ثم أتبعها بباب في ضبط خفي ألفاظها. He says, and these hadiths here, he says, I have required that all of them be sound and authentic. Every hadith that I've quoted in this book is authentic to me, he's saying. And it's a tremendous benefit. As a layman Muslim and as a student of knowledge, as a beginner, whatever you read in this book has been declared authentic by a great scholar of hadith. Your own research, later on. Your own reservations and opinions and bath, later on. But as a beginner, this is sufficient. So therefore, me, I'm on the bus going to work. I'm on the train going to work. I'm not a scholar, I'm not a student, I don't speak Arabic. And I read that the Prophet said this, and the Prophet said that, and no, he says it's all authentic. That's more than enough for me. That's more than enough for me. And you know that there's been a scholar of Islam who has deemed him to be authentic. What does this scholar say later on? Another scholar here, that's a different story. Moving forward, he says that most of these hadiths are in Bukhari and Muslim. Most of them are in Bukhari and Muslim, not all of them, but most of them. And I do not mention the chains of narrations in order for it to be easier for the people to memorize it in a more simple and easy fashion, inshallah ta'ala. And then he goes on to say that he'll explain some of the words which is not necessarily mentioned in most of the prints of the Arba'in. Last but not least, he finishes this introduction by saying, وَيَنْبَغِي لِكُلِّ رَاغِبٍ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أن يعرف هذه الأحاديث لما اشتملت عليه من المهمات واحتوت عليه من التنبيه على جميع الطاعات وذلك ظاهر لمن تدبره وعلى الله اعتمادي وإليه تفويضي واستنادي وله الحمد والنعمة وبه التوفيق والعصمة. He says here, know for sure that whoever wants the hereafter, the one who looks for the hereafter, Jannah, and being protected from hell, he should know what these hadiths mention. He should have an idea and a whiff of these hadiths. The one who wants Allah in the last day, the one who wants to go to Jannah, he should have some basic understanding and realization of these hadiths and the principles and the maxims that they include for all acts of obedience. All acts of obedience, your creed, salah, zakah, hajj, fasting, jihad, seeking knowledge, buying, selling, getting married, dhikr of Allah, tawbah, repentance, whatever act of obedience that you want to do is going to be mentioned in these 40 hadiths. He says, and this is clear for those who reflect, i.e. that it isn't that clear for those who do not reflect. So many people, they say, well, how is something so obvious, but these people don't know about it? Or you were the first one to mention it. And why don't the majority of the people get it and see it? First and foremost, that's not my responsibility. I'm only responsible for my aql, my brain. Oftentimes, people, they don't reflect on things. They don't sit down and scratch their heads and put their fists on their chin and says, wait a second, how is this making sense? No, that can't be right. Or maybe it is right, but let me ask and investigate more. Let me do some more investigation. Let me think more. Let me pray and ask Allah for more guidance. لِمَنْ تَدَبَّرَهُ, those who don't critically reflect. Many people, they don't critically reflect. They see things, they hear things, but they don't make any type of critical and serious reflection. And that's why they don't get the point. So looking at it is the first step. Reflecting on it is the second and most important step. Knowing, he says, I place my trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and my reliance and my dependence is upon Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. And to Allah is all praise, for Allah is all thanks and all gratitude. All blessings come from Him, and with Him is all success, and with Him is all protection from mistake and from error. Khairan, inshallah. So that is the first hadith of Nawawi, that's the introduction, excuse me. Bidnillah ta'ala, we move forward to al-hadith al-awwal, the first hadith. What time is the adhan here tonight? No problem? طيب, khairan, inshallah. Before we move on to the first hadith, not only is the explanation of the hadiths on the channel, but the audio of the hadiths are there as well. It's a proper reading of someone whose first language is Arabic, not like myself. Someone whose mother language is Arabic. A clear, perfect reading of the whole entire metin is on the channel, inshallah. And the purpose of the books being on the channel, the audio books, is for you to sit down with your tablet or your pocketbook, listen to it, and read along. And then you slow it down. An Amir al-Mu'mineen Abi Hafs. You listen to it. Or you listen to it, you put it on repeat. When you're taking your walk or your jog or whatever you're doing, and you listen to it and you hear it, and you know the proper pronunciation of it. Or in your book, you may not have all of the vowels. Or maybe it's a vowel that's missing. Or deeper than that, you've memorized them or you know how to read them properly, but you keep refreshing yourself. And we know that the brain is a tremendous creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the most complex things known to man is the human brain. It's amazing, mind-boggling, spine-tingling, amazing. And the levels that are contained within the brain. And from those aspects of the brain is that which is conscious and subconscious. That which you have memorized or you're familiar with, and you may not even realize it. And all you need is to hear it, and it comes back to you immediately. And that's the benefit of listening to the audio. That's the benefit of listening to the audio. Now, these 40 hadiths, alaykum salam to Allah, just like the Quran, the most important thing is to learn how to read them properly, first and foremost. Before you think about memorizing them, and before you think about the sharh as having the basic qira'ah of the hadith. Qira'ah sahiha. A valid, sound reading of those hadiths. Once you know how to read them properly, you can memorize them whenever you want to. You can memorize them throughout the week, before the next class. You can memorize them here, you can memorize them there, because you have the skill of reading it properly. And if you can't read it properly, then you'll memorize it with a mistake. And oftentimes it becomes extremely difficult to memorize it when you can't read it the right way. So that's the first step, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Tayyib. So what I'm going to do, inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to read the hadith myself, and then inshallah we're going to read the hadith together. For those brothers and sisters who wish to practice and read along with me. The book says, Al-Hadith al-Awwal, إنما العمل بالنيات عن أمير المؤمنين أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. رواه إمام المحدثين أبو عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل ابن إبراهيم ابن الغيرة ابن بردزبة البخاري وأبو الحسين مسلم بن الحجاج ابن مسلم القشيري النيسابوري في صحيحيهما اللذين هما أصح الكتب المصنفة. And we're going to explain exactly what this means in a moment, inshallah, and the importance of this, and also the lack of importance of that when it comes to retaining the hadiths. Khayr, inshallah. So everyone ready to crank it up?
Yes, sir.
Inshallah. طيب. عن أمير المؤمنين عن أمير عن أميري عن أمير المؤمنين 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 أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب عمر بن الخطاب عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال عن أمير المؤمنين أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه قال سمع الله لمن حمده سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم
سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم
يقول
يقول
إنما
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 إنما إنما إنما الأعمال أعمال إنما الأعمال إنما الأعمال إنما الأعمال بالنيات إنما الأعمال بالنيات إنما الأعمال بالنيات إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما وإنما لكل امرئ لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ huh? You understand? You got to connect it. Once you memorize it, you connect it. لكل امرئ منهم يومئذ يغنيه. طيب لكل امرئ وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى ما نوى إنما الأعمال بالنيات إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فمن كانت هجرته فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. Now, Jazakumullah khairan, thank you all for your participation. You may say that this hadith seems long, or this is difficult or hard, I'll never get this. I'm barely struggling with this word or so on and so forth. But that's not necessarily the case. Think of all of the things you know now. Did you know them when you first became a Muslim? When they said, this is what you have to say 5 times a day. Fatiha and this surah and that surah, make the adhan. Now you can say them what? Without any thought, without any effort. I mean, I'm saying this thing about the longest surah that you know. When you first start, it's like, whoa, it's too hard, it's too difficult, it's a different language. So you have to make steps, inshallah. And we all know the loftiest towers rise from the ground. The loftiest towers rise from the ground. The biggest skyscraper that you see downtown was once one brick. It was once one steel beam. Look at it now. Stories soaring in the sky. So you have to take steps, and you have to realize that it's not impossible. It may be challenging. It may take time. It may take effort, but it can be done. If you do it piece by piece, slowly, progressively. Inshallah ta'ala. Study with yourself. Study with the audio. Study with the brothers and the sisters. Try your best and give effort. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He ordered Musa alayhi salam to tell his followers, to tell the Yahud, the Israelites, to enter the gates of Jerusalem. And once you enter the gates, you'll be victorious. No matter how big and strong and formidable those warriors are, just go inside. And we know that they didn't. And they were afraid and they were cowardly. And they said, we'll never enter those gates as long as those warriors are in that place. And the only thing they had to do was enter the gates and they would have won. So take a step and leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put in some sincere effort, put some time in, and don't worry about the rest. And even if you fall short, you don't hit the mark, at least you've tried, and that's a reward. And the most important thing from this hadith, if you can only memorize the first part, that's not a loss. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Sufficient. Something happens at work, something happens between you and your wife, something happens on the street, something happens in the masjid, you say, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. These are only based off of intentions. That's the highlighting point from the hadith. And if it's the only thing that you could get, that's more than enough. All of the details, you paraphrase them, whatever the case may be, you knew it only in English, that's enough. As long as you got إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. And obviously there are levels. If you can memorize the whole hadith in Arabic, that's a different level. That's a different story. And do we realize this? That when we memorize hadiths, brothers and sisters, you are putting yourself in the long line of people whom Allah uses to preserve His religion. When Allah says that we have sent down the reminder and we shall protect it, and you memorize the Quran, you memorize the hadiths, bi'idhnillah, that's a good sign that Allah is using you to preserve His deen. So don't think of a small, simple action. And obviously, rewards, virtues, and bounties, they don't come for free. You have to put in some effort. Without no pain, no what? No gain. That's the general principle. If you're not willing to feel it and to put in some pain and suffering, you're not willing to get the reward and the sweetness, the thrill of victory. I would understand this. So you have to put in some efforts, and don't look at it as a big, gigantic mountain, brick by brick, piece by piece. And most importantly, practice makes perfect. Repeating the repeated. Repeating the repeated. Go over again, say it again, read it again, and test yourself. And after a day, a week, a month, depending on how much you study, you'll find that it will stick with you. And it becomes easier and easier and easier. But you gotta sweat. I understand this. You can't go to the gym, think you want to lose weight or gain muscle mass and not break a sweat. It doesn't work like that. You have to go home aching and sore. Now you know that you got a good workout. And then you get the benefit from that. Being that it's no different when it comes to what? Knowledge. And don't be intimidated just because it's a different language. It can be easy. Inshallah ta'ala. Khairan inshallah. So therefore, that's the reading of the first hadith, the commentary, the explanation, and if anyone wants to memorize it for the next class, will be in the next class, inshallah ta'ala. I don't know the schedule here at the masjid, who is speaking on what's a schedule, but if it's possible, maybe we can do the class next week. If it's possible, inshallah. As soon as we confirm it, we'll make the announcement for the people, inshallah ta'ala. So with that being said, we will stop here with regards to the first hadith. And in our next class, whether it's next week or whenever it will be, we will go into those who want to memorize it and into the fiqh of the hadith, the sharh of the hadith, and what do we get from the hadith in 2019 in West Philadelphia. What do I get from this hadith walking down 60th Street? How does the hadith have an effect upon my life as a Muslim living in the modern world? Both theory and in practice. Allah surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Perhaps we'll take some questions, inshallah ta'ala, before or after the adhan.
The way you, at the end of the hadith, you mentioned Bukhari, you're Muslim, that, or is it sufficient to say muttafaqun alayh?
Question is regarding memorizing Rawahu Imam al-Muhaddithin Abu Abdullah. Do you have to know all of that? Or is sufficient to say muttafaqun alayh? No doubt saying muttafaqun alayh is more than sufficient. That's enough. But if a person wanted to memorize the whole book as he wrote it, then those are his words. Those are the words of the author. But of course, there are levels. And to be honest with you, Sheikh, a student of knowledge, he has to say to himself, look, I got a lot of books to read. I got a lot of books to memorize. I have to prioritize. Is this line, is this paragraph, is it something that's going to stick with me? Do I need it? Am I going to mention it in a class, in a khutbah? Is it that practical? Of course it's important. All knowledge is important. Even the knowledge which is just theory. And many people, they make a mistake. Theory is extremely important. And practice, obviously, is more important. So if you want to memorize the whole thing, that's tayyib. And if you want to say Rawah Bukhari Muslim or muttafaqun alayh, tayyib. La haraj. If'al wa la haraj. Inshallah. Wallahu a'lam. Faddal.
Chief, we can set the class for next week if it's okay in your schedule.
Tayyib. Okay. Bidnillah, next Friday after Salat al-Maghrib. Inshallah ta'ala. Bidnillah. Jazakallah khairan. Any other questions from the floor, from the brothers here? Faddal. And then questions from the sisters, they can send them up or however they can send them. If there are any questions from the sisters, downstairs. If there are any questions from the sisters, now's the time. Faddal Sheikh.
Two things
Faddal.
I'd like to speak on, inshallah. May Allah bless you God.
Ameen.
Reward you. Memorizing. I said the old days we start memorizing the Quran. And I can remember as myself, burning myself out. Reading the Quran, the first thing I wanted to learn was Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Isra. And a brother came up who was delivering the papers, and another brother came, Mom, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to learn Surah Al-Baqarah. He said, don't burn yourself out. Go back to the short one. To this day, I might learn 15 lines of Surah Al-Baqarah. But learn other surahs, inshallah, but not going so fast and trying to burn
You gotta pace yourself, no doubt, Sheikh. You have to pace yourself. Slow and steady wins the race. No doubt.
The second thing was, as a layman, I taught like 25 students, I teach welding, and the Muslims, we used to have a talim, right? And during the talim, I was just trying to explain what a layman terms to brothers that Islam has a lot of flavors. And when it get good to you, it's sweet. If it's sour, it's something wrong with you.
No
The
doubt.
students came back and said they liked it, I said, touch on it, inshallah.
Indeed. Indeed. The wisdom of the old heads is paramount. Islam has many flavors. And if it tastes sweet, inshallah, something good. And if it tastes sour, it's not an original flavor of Islam. There's tremendous wisdom in that statement. And that is very, very, very practical when we can apply that. And all of the confusion and this dawah and this imam and this sheikh and this, there's no doubt about that. If it's leaving you with a bitter, nasty taste in your mouth and it's causing you to hate your brother, your friend, your students, your this and that, and to split and break people up, something ain't right. It's just that simple. Jazakallah khairan.
I used to tell them it's you.
Allah knows best, Sheikh. تفضل. السلام ورحمة الله. حياك الله شيخ. كيف حالك؟ طيب؟ مرحبا.
I had a question a couple of weeks ago. Myself and a couple of brothers who were outside in front of the masjid. We were talking about the Hadith of the Prophet where at the age he was stated to have said that the age of everyone in paradise would be 33.
طيب.
And I had never heard it, so I challenged the brother on it. And the brother, eventually we found that it is reported in Tabidi.
Okay.
It happened.
تفضل. Please read it.
With me.
تفضل.
I didn't bring it with me.
Ah, subhanallah, Sheikh.
I didn't have it with me. But I
تفضل.
sent you a text this year.
طيب.
I sent you a text last week, and I asked you about it, and I asked you whether it was authentic or not. And I know your phone probably like,
طيب.
so you didn't see it, but mashallah, I wanted to know whether or not it was authentic or not.
خير inshallah. طيب. So would you like me to respond in a text? Would you like me to
No,
give you the personal,
a couple of the brothers are here.
the personal answer to you on the side or for everybody?
Everybody.
طيب. خير inshallah. The ulama of Islam, they say that Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentions kawa'iba atraban, uruban atraba. And they say that this means, and this is interpreted, that the people of Jannah will have a similar age. They won't be exceedingly young. Of course, they won't be old and, depleting and things like this, but they'll have been in the prime of their physical age. And some of the ulama of Islam, they say based off of that narration, whether it's authentic or not, and statements of some of the Sahaba, is that the people of paradise will be 33 years old. 33 years old, except for the children who will be the servants of paradise. They'll be servants. Those who die at a young age. And some of them, they may say that those who die after they've reached the age of puberty, they're of the age of being responsible for their deeds. In Jannah, they'll be 33. Some of the ulama, they have mentioned this in the tafsir of those ayat. With regards to كواعب أترابا عربا أترابا, يعني their sin is appropriate for each other. Fadda. Fadda. Bismillah. Bismillah.
Narrated by Al-Bukhari. Well, this is Al-Bukhari, Hadith 5873, and Muslim, Hadith 7092. With regard to the ages, they were all into paradise at the age of strength and youth, 33 years old. It was narrated from Mu'adh ibn Jabal that the Prophet ﷺ said, the people of paradise were into paradise, hairless, beardless, with their eyes anointed with oil, aged 30 or 33 years. And this is narrated by At-Tirmidhi, Hadith number 2545, class is Sahih by Al-Albani and Sahih al-Jami.
طيب. Jazakallah khairan. As we mentioned before, with regards to that tafsir, whether it comes directly from the Prophet ﷺ authentically, or whether it's in a hadith that's a difference of opinion, or whether it's from the tafsir of the Sahaba that the people will be 33 years of age. Now, a very important point, last thing I'll mention with regards to this question, is that people have to be careful what they spread and pass on social media. And oftentimes people, they themselves don't know exactly what it is. And it's fine with passing it on, but make sure you just pass it on. This is what I heard, this is what I saw. Saying it is authentic. The Prophet said this, Bukhari, but Tirmidhi, which one, who was it? You have to just be careful. At the end of the day, this is a well-known view of the people of knowledge with regards to the age of the people of Jannah, and that being the tafsir of those ayat, at-Rab. They will be of similar age. And obviously, there are things in paradise which no doubt we can relate to. And there are things in paradise which we may only know the word, just the text, but the reality of it is unknown. It's something we can't even imagine, a river of milk. A river of honey, not a pool of milk. You know how much milk is in a bowl of milk, not a cup. You have a basin of milk. How much milk would it be in a bathtub? And if the bathtub is it sitting, is it running, will the milk curdle and spoil? Okay, a pond of milk, a brook of milk, a lake of milk, rather a what? A river. وَأَنْهَارٌ, rivers. Can you even begin to ponder on that? So we know what the word river means, and we know what the word milk means. Lebanon, Lebanon, the milk that isn't putrid, it isn't foul. But can we realize the reality of those things? Okay, that's first and foremost. Secondly is, there's certain things of the unseen, many things, the asal of the unseen, which we can't comprehend. Because a person may say, why are they 33? Why won't they be 18 years old? Isn't that the prime of your physical prowess? Not necessarily. 33, a person is more mature than 18, but their body isn't as strong and supple and whatever the case may be at that age, but that's revelation. Whether that revelation said is authentically just back to the Prophet, or whether that revelation was stated by the Sahaba, and there was no way that they could have made it up. And obviously they didn't take from the Jews and the Christians. The details with regards to ما له حكم الرفع. طيب. خير Sheikh. Inshallah we're getting more to that. بإذن me and you on a personal level. وإياكم. تفضل.
I read a hadith a couple of weeks ago. It's rather long, and it talks about this man who he asked Allah for something that he's seen. And Allah said to him, "If I give this to you, do you want to ask anything else?" He said, "No, I won't." And then he gave it to him. Then he asked for something else. Anyway, it was long. And then in the hadith, the thing that struck me was it said that the people who would be in the hellfire, that they would be recognized by their places of prostration.
Okay.
And then they would be removed from the hellfire because of the places of prostration. So what I was wondering was, because in the hadith it seemed like it was talking about one person. Mm-hmm. Is this related to one person, or is this a group of people that will be the last people that will be the people who will come out of the hellfire?
question is regarding the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with regards to the last person who comes out of the fire of hell, and how he will make Allah a promise and he'll break his promise. And Allah will say to him, Ma aghdaraka ya ibn Adam, how treacherous you are, O son of Adam. You said this was the last thing you asked for, I've given it to you, so on and so forth. It goes back and forth with regards to the lowest status in paradise, even the hellfire, etc. And how the people will be recognized by the mawadi' as-sujud, the places of prostration. And Allah has forbidden the hellfire from eating away at the places of sujud. So is this the last person, absolutely, or the last people, etc.? Give or take. There are different levels of the people in paradise, and there are different levels of people in hellfire. There are some Muslims, we know, who deserve to go to hell, but because of intercession, shafa'ah, Allah's kindness, Allah's mercy, and a calamity that happened to them, something that they lost in the dunya, that will prevent them from going to the hellfire. And then there are other Muslims who deserve to go to the hellfire, and they'll go in, and they'll be taken out relatively quickly. They won't suffer that long. And then there are some Muslims, unfortunately, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, who will be there for some time. A'udhu billah. And they will burn for some time. And they will be taken out, and they have to be reconstructed, wa'iyadu billah, before they're placed back into paradise. It's serious. So the concept of there are people who will be the last to come out of the fire, no doubt about that. And the concept of the very last person, there's no doubt about what? About that as well. Is that there's going to be, that hadith says, the last person, and then there are the last people. Singular, plural, give or take, both concepts go hand in hand. Everyone understand this? Let's say, for example, if you had 50 people who were the last to get off the bus. It's the last group. Obviously, the 50th person is going to be the what? The very last. From among the last group. وَهَكَذَا. Make sense? And Allah surely knows best. Any other questions, brothers or sisters? Fadal.
One more thing, back on Hadith, I don't want to hold it too long. Intercession. Me and Noah years ago, I came to him with this, and we want a Hadith, that the intercession of the believer, that one day we're going to have a personal conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we make it there. And one of the questions of the believer would be is, back in the dunya, yeah, Allah, where's Brother Munir? I used to pray with him. I used to, get benefit from him. And at the end, to make it short, you can elaborate on it. The law will say, go get your brother from the hellfire and bring him to paradise.
Sorry.
Strong, weak.
Clear. Question is regarding those hadiths about a person will have a personal conversation with Allah on the day of judgment. And the servant will ask Allah, where is so-and-so that I used to pray with and do this with, and he was righteous and pious, and it will be said to him that he's in the fire of hell. Go and get your brother. Is that weak? Is that strong? At the end of the day, we have hadiths about intercession which are clearly authentic, and then we have hadiths about intercession which aren't authentic. And we have some hadiths which it may be something different. What's important is the concept of intercession is confirmed in the Quran and the authentic Sunnah, and that Allah Azza wa Jal, by His grace and His kindness, will allow and honor certain Muslims to intercede for their brothers and sisters. As far as them taking them out the fire themselves, that's a different discussion. As far as them having the power and the ability to just pull out, not necessarily. Rather, they will ask Allah and they will beg Allah, and Allah will honor he who interceded. Like someone comes and speaks to me on behalf of another brother. He says, Mufti, can you help our brother Fulan? Can you help him get married? Or can you take him as your student? Now, I really don't want to take him as my student, or I want to, but he doesn't deserve it. But I allow him to be my student on your behalf, to honor and respect your wishes. You intercede for someone, a middleman, an in-between. Okay? But the fact that you made him my student, no. Because I'm the teacher. I have the ability to say who is and who isn't going to learn from me. But I honored you to do it. So if that's what you mean by I allowed you to be his student, metaphorically speaking or whatever, tajawuzan fil ibadah, loosely speaking, then that's one thing. But you didn't do it. So therefore, them going and pulling out the people out of hellfire, no. Them asking Allah for it, Allah honoring them, accepting their intercession from the people of Tawheed, la bas. There's no doubt about that. And there are other hadiths with regards to the women who lose children through miscarriages. The children will protect them from the fire of hell. Will the children be between the mothers and the fire? Not necessarily, but it's a means behind them being prevented from going to the hellfire, even if they deserve to go to the fire. What happened to that? So at the end of the day, that's what is authentic, is that the believers will be honored with intercession, and there are different levels of intercession. Intercession of those who are in paradise to go to a higher rank. Intercession for those who deserve to go to paradise to go to paradise. Intercession for those who deserve to go to hell to be protected from going into hell. Intercession for those who are in the hellfire to come out of the hellfire. Wahakada. In brief. And of course, we know there are many hadiths from back in the day which aren't necessarily authentic, or they have a meaning or loose translation, etc. Wallahu a'lam. Tayyib, khair inshallah. Question, we'll take a few from online. Question says, from Muhammad Salah, from Farwaniya, Kuwait. What does the ayah, بل هو آيات بينات في صدور الذين أوتوا العلم mean? Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you and bless the Muslims in Kuwait. Allah Azza wa Jal, He speaks about the Quran al-Kareem in the Quran al-Kareem. And Allah, He speaks about the other revealed books, the Torah, the Injil, the Suhuf of Ibrahim and Musa, the Zabur of Dawood, so on and so forth. And He talks about the revelation that He sent down to His messengers. He talks about the angels. And He talks about the scriptures being preserved, and the scriptures, by His wisdom and permission, not being preserved. And the people changing them, altering them, and the people distorting their meanings. And from that is Allah, He speaks on the deen being preserved by memory and by heart. And this person has a doubt, he has a doubt, he's unsure, he's a skeptic, but this one has memorized it and he knows that it's from Allah. Clear signs, bayinat, in the breasts of men who have been given knowledge. So we come to certainty, yaqeen. The yaqeen of the learned person is not like the yaqeen of the layman person. Even though the layman has yaqeen, but it's a different level. Like we said about the 40 hadiths of Nawawi. He who memorizes the sunnah by heart is not like he who just paraphrases the hadiths. He who studies it as a science, and he knows the back-breaking labor required to seek ilm and to get it, is not like one who just says, authenticated by Sheikh Fulan. So there are different levels of knowledge. And those who have been blessed with this ilm, and they've been allowed to memorize the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by heart, it's a tremendous virtue. And they are those who benefit from the Quran, who learn from the Quran, and they are the people whom Allah Azza wa Jalla uses to preserve His revelation, the revelation that He wills to remain preserved. That's in brief. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Next question says, SM from London, were the wives of the Prophet ﷺ required to dress differently than other believing women? I don't know anything specific that states or proves that. The legislation for the Prophet's wives was the legislation for the other believing women. Other things such as remarrying after the Prophet's death, making Hajj after the Prophet's death, then being asked from behind a curtain, so on and so forth, different story. But like I'm saying, the basics of the dress, the basic commandments and the rules, I don't know of anything that specifically states that the Prophet's wives had this and the rest of the believing women didn't have to do that. Other things, such as what I just mentioned, that's a different story. Not making Hajj after the Prophet, different story. Not remarrying after the Prophet, different story. As far as specific rules to their hijab that the other women were not bound by, I don't know about that. I don't know anything authentic that gives the Prophet's wives specific style of hijab. Wallahu alam. Salam, my cousins in Trinidad is going to this mufti and he's giving them spiritual healing, and they're getting more and more sick and awaiting spiritual healing, and their conditions are getting worse. Is there a book specifically? I don't know. Is it the same question? Omar Hussein, where are you sending your question from? Please mention it. Jazakallah khairan. MJ from Sydney, Australia. Regards to the study of narrators. Any resources or tips for a beginner who's reading the seer on how to reconcile the different opinions of muhaddithin regarding the narrator? Barakallah fiqh wa fiqh barakallah. Of course, the books of al-Mustalah, they talk about al-Jarh wa Ta'dil and Ilm al-Rijal. The small, simple manuals that you study, you learn about the science of criticizing the narrators, of grading the narrators. There's thiqah and there's da'if, there's hafiz, there's sayyul hifz, etc. And there are things of which the ulama agree, and there are things of which the ulama differ, and differ severely and staunchly. And they differ on narrators. This narrator may be in Bukhari or Muslim or outside of this one. Did Imam Ahmed narrate only from thiqat? Does Imam Malik have weak teachers? They differ on these things like this. So you take those small books of Al-Mustalah and Nukhbat al-Fikr, he's leading to this. Al-Tadhkir is mentioned. Al-Ba'ath al-Hadith is mentioned. Al-Muqidha is mentioned. And then bi'idhnillah, once you've studied 2 or 3 of these small manuals on the Hadith Mustalah, you pick up Taqrib wa Tahdhib. And you pick up Al-Kashif. And you pick up Al-Khulasa. And you pick up those small summarized books on the Ilm al-Rijal. Alright? Let alone the modern day books, such as the curriculum for the College of Hadith. Dawabit al-Jarh wa Ta'dil is an excellent book for things like this. Wallahu alam. Next question says, Ali Yazir, is there a book specifically about the characters of the people in the chain of narration in order to criticize the hadith? We just answered that question with the previous question. Please, brothers and sisters, if you're going to send a question, we humbly ask you to mention your initials, your city and state, town, village, country, initials or your name, and where you're sending the question from. Jazakallah khairan for understanding. US, from London, UK. Assalamu alaikum. I work in a job where I don't get breaks. Is it permissible for me to combine prayers such as Asr and Maghrib? Also, what is the correct reason to perform it? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You can't do this on a daily basis. You cannot combine these prayers on a daily basis and you're not traveling. Unless you're sick or unless there's a woman who has irregular bleeding and it's difficult for her to clean herself. As far as you not being a traveler, you not being sick, you don't have irregular bleeding, there's not an emergency that's happening, and there's a need to combine the prayers, then some of the ulama of Islam, they say that it's permissible to combine those prayers out of necessity occasionally, and not on a daily basis, nor on a consistent basis. So, at my job, I normally get out of work at 5 p.m. and I get home at 6 p.m. It's plenty of time for me to make Salat al-Asr. Is it best for me to delay Asr like that, but the train, etc.? I have enough time to make Asr. And today, someone got hurt at the job. I had to fill in another thing. It was an emergency. The person was bleeding. I didn't leave, or this happened at 3:30 or 4 p.m. And I knew for sure I wasn't going to make Asr and I wasn't going to get home on time. So I'm going to make my Dhuhr and my Asr together. That's one thing. But it can't be done on a daily basis over and over and over again unless you have one of those legitimate, established reasons. Wallahu alam. That's in brief. Next question says, AK from St. Louis, Missouri. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. What is the ruling on having non-Muslim roommate? It depends. Can you control the situation? Or are you at the mercy of someone else? Can you ask for a referral or to be sent to another dorm? Or it depends on what you're doing, where you are. It depends. It depends. If you can control it, then of course your roommate should be a Muslim. And not just a Muslim, but a pious Muslim, a righteous Muslim. A Muslim trying to practice and learn the Sunnah and be a good, righteous, God-fearing Muslim. If you don't have the power and the control, that's a different story. If the person, you're trying to give them dawah, maybe a different story. And of course, there are levels of non-Muslims as well. All non-Muslims don't drink. All non-Muslims don't smoke. All non-Muslims don't watch pornography and listen to this and watch this and do bad things. There's some non-Muslims who may be studious, they may be humble, they may be interested in Islam. It depends. But there lies no doubt you should strive to make sure that the one who's sleeping in the same room with you, who knows your personal secrets, who has access to you and your honor and your wealth, that person should be someone who has some type of fear of Allah in his heart. That's what needs to be done. Khairan inshallah. Right, next question says, AK Columbus, Ohio. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. What is the ruling on taking a loan in which the government pays the interest on? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. The discussion of interest and interest loans is a very long discussion. We know that. It's a very long discussion and a detailed discussion. Don't take any loans, interest-free or with interest, unless you have to. Unless it's an absolute necessity. Unless you have no other option and you really, really have to get this thing done. You shouldn't take loans, even if it has nothing to do with riba, because a loan is a debt and debt is a responsibility. And we all know what the hadiths tell us about when a man goes into debt and he makes a promise and he breaks his promise and he doesn't fulfill the time, and it's a tough situation when you become in debt. Okay, you get into a very difficult situation being a slave of debt. And that's a debt that has nothing to do with riba, let alone a debt that includes riba. As far as the government paying the interest, then there lies no doubt that's far less of a problem than you agreeing to pay the interest yourself. But at the same time, you're involved in a triangle of riba. There's interest being paid and collected, you're signing off, they're taking care of it, they're taking care of it for you. It's not as bad, but you're still involved. But at the end of the day, who isn't involved in the situation, in the system? You have a debit card, credit card, you still have a card at the bank. You're still in the system. You're still feeding the beast of riba. They're still eating off of your wealth, a little or a lot. They're still dependent on you being a number and a decimal in their system. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And we've mentioned many times before about the hadith, which is not authentic, but is a very deep, deep meaning. And some ulama of Islam say it has a true meaning without a question, that the time will come and the one who doesn't eat from riba will be touched by its dust. Its dust will fall on you. Even if you're not taking it directly, it has some effect on you. There lies no doubt, 2019, that's applicable. Okay, and we all know the famous story. When I was in Yemen, the American and the British brothers there were traveling to and from Sa'da. They were in Sana'a, in Aden, in this place, in Ma'bar. And they obviously had wives, they had to take care of their wives. How are they going to take care of their wives? They don't have money. The money was being sent from home. And the money was being sent from home via card. International Visa card or MasterCard. They would get the money to take care of themselves. So there were some people there, people of knowledge. And brothers, they were saying, you can't use these cards. These cards are haram. You can't get anything sent in your debit account, period. Even though it's not credit, it's haram, it's riba. Play it. So one brother, he says, well, how do we survive? We're not from Yemen. What do we do for money? So the brother, he said, get the money sent from Western Union, inshallah. Let them send the money in Western Union. It may be less, it may be a fee. You may have to go out your way, but it's better than dealing with the card. No problem. So when I had some money sent from Western Union, I had to find out where the Western Union was. So I asked around, they told me where it was. I got off the cab and I didn't see Western Union. I didn't see anything black and yellow. But I saw a big, gigantic National Bank of Yemen. So I walked and I asked the person, where's the Western Union? They said, Western Union is inside. Point understood? The Western Union is where? In the bank. And you walking inside, you're going behind this glass, and then you're making a transaction. So the bank and Western Union are what? So the system is all connected, one way or another. And if it's all connected, and if it's a lot of dust blowing around, there lies no best. The best thing to do, cover your face and then try to dip into dodge and try your best not to get hit directly with it. That's the best thing to do. So if the government is going to pay off the loans and you need the loans, then that's one thing. That's better than you dealing with the loans and the interest, etc. directly. If the government is going to pay off the interest and not the actual loan. And Allah knows best. Next question says, from Abu Muqbil al-Pakistani, coming from the UK. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, akhi. From the UK, been having problems in understanding the difference between, we answered that question already a couple days ago. Toronto, Canada, UA, initials you have days to make up for Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, I'm almost complete, but I worry I'll miss Shawwal. Can the fasting of Shawwal be made up in the next month? At the end of the day, that's a problematic issue. That's a problematic issue with regards to women who have menstruation and they have missed days of Ramadan. She missed 6 days from Ramadan. She makes up the 6 days in Shawwal, and then she gets another menstruation. That's 12 days now. She only has 2 weeks left to fast in Shawwal. She has to work, kids, this and that. It's difficult. Many ulama say that she cannot do the Shawwal days until she has made the missed Ramadan days. Period. And if she misses out on the virtue, she misses out on the virtue. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. Allah gives a bounty to whom He wills. And other scholars, they say rather, due to the fact that a woman is going to miss the days and it's going to be very, very difficult, there's nothing wrong with her making the Shawwal days before she makes the missed Ramadan days. And she has many months to make up the missed Ramadan days. Shawwal is a limited period of time. And she fasted the majority of Ramadan except for 6 days or 5 days. Lepers. The ulama of Islam, they have different views with regards to that. Inshallah, you can't go wrong with that. Bi-idhnillah. Question says, Lameen Kamara, would you recommend studying overseas or an Islamic institution in the States? Please mention where you're sending the question from. Jazakallah khairan. DW from San Antonio, Texas. What is the rule on purchasing a gun and carrying it with the correct licensing of course? There's nothing wrong with having a weapon in Islam. There's nothing wrong with that. Rather, there are many hadiths about weapons in Islam. Many hadiths about learning marksmanship with the arrow and anything that takes the place of the bow and the arrow. There are hadiths with regards to, of course, in the cause of Allah. There's no doubt about that. Hadiths about defending yourself. Hadiths about protecting. And the list goes on. If it's not haram in Islam and you have a license, then there's nothing to worry about. My advice to anyone who has a gun is to realize that a gun is a tool. It's a tool. Look at it as a tool. A knife is a tool. Okay? If you use it properly, it helps you and it benefits you. If it's misused, it will hurt you and harm others. And it can bring a great deal of ruin upon yourself and upon others. And if you have a gun and it's licensed, make sure that you control your ego. And make sure you don't become an instant tough guy just because you have a gun. Because there are times and instances in which you can't use a gun. Whether it's in jail, whether the gun jams on you, whether you run out of bullets, or whether someone takes the gun from you. Rather, if you have a knife, if you're in prison, or a razor, whatever, an ox, whatever you call it. If it's taken out your hand, then what? You got to fight with your knuckles, with your bare hands, your feet, your knees, your elbows. So just be mindful of the tough guy syndrome. If you're not a real, true tough guy, you're going to find yourself in a world of problems. And oftentimes guns, they make people do things and say things and act in a certain way which they would never, ever act and behave. And we all know what the famous poet said, I gave you power. That's a profound poem. I made you buck wild. Those are real lyrics. I gave you power. I made you behave like this, thinking that you're a tough guy, pulling out a gun, shooting at somebody. And if there were no guns and it was just fist to fist, man to man, if we had to tie our shoestrings together, like the old heads, how tough would you actually be? If it's me and you, how tough would you really be? So be mindful of that gun getting you to have that type of ego trip. Be mindful of thinking that you're a tough guy and a gangster. It's not John Wayne and the OK Corral or Wyatt Earp. This is real life stuff. And everyone says that they're tough until those bullets whiz by. How many of you actually been in a real shootout? It's reality. Movies, raps, singers, songs, that's not real life. You ask someone who's been shot before how the burning sensation feels, how it cracks your bones. It's real. So are you really built for that type of lifestyle? And how many mothers have became bereft of their children, orphans, widows, because of people playing around with guns, unfortunately. And that's a long, long discussion about the gun culture in the United States. And the hypocrisy of the people. They say that guns are because of rappers. What about the movies? Who influenced the rappers to carry guns? And to get names like Scarface and Tony Montana and this one and that one, Noriega and these people, except for the movies. But they never blame the movies. They'll never lobby against banning The Godfather or Scarface or any of the famous gangster movies. They'll never lobby against those movies. But the rappers and the musicians, they say they're bad and they're evil, which many of them are. There's no question about that. The point is violence and the culture of violence and carrying guns with the purpose of just shooting unnecessarily and being a tough guy and playing a tough guy and thinking that you're in some type of Western movie shooting out. It's not okay. And if you think that it's okay, you're going to have a very, very rude awakening in this life and also in the hereafter. So if you have a gun and it's licensed, make sure that you deal with it responsibly And make sure you know the danger of that gun and also the value of that gun. And perhaps this will be the last thing we'll say tonight. The very first thing that you should learn about a gun is how to respect it. Respect the gun. It's not a toy. It's not a plaything. It's not something to just pull out on someone. You can kill yourself. You can shoot yourself. It's very dangerous. All right? So just be mindful of that. And if a person has the necessary precaution and the necessary responsibility and the necessary respect, and it's not against where they are, there's nothing wrong with it Islamically. Rather, it could be a benefit and a means of helping you to be safer, so on and so forth. And Allah surely knows best.
Sheikh, I have a question in regards to a question that you pulled off your monitor earlier in regards to women's dress. And is there anything specifically stated in Quran about the colors that the women wear? And if you could just speak on that.
With regards to colors of a woman's dress, there are many hadiths when you read them, you'll find all different colors being mentioned. When the Prophet ﷺ's wives, the Ummahatul Mu'mineen, the other believing women, when they made Hajj, when they went out with him in Hajjatul Wada, it wasn't always necessarily just one color. It wasn't always necessarily just one color. An authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, of the Prophet, I say, that mandates one color, we've never come across that in my studies. I've never read anything authentic from the Prophet ﷺ directly that mandates one color, whether it be black, blue, red, so on and so forth. Rather, Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, he was asked about a woman wearing white. And gave several fatwas on the issue. One time he said a woman shouldn't wear white. And that's because white is from the clothing of men. And another time the Sheikh, rahimahullah, he says a woman can wear white as long as it is made in the style of a woman. As long as it's made in the fashion of a woman. So at the end of the day, a Muslim woman's hijab does not have to be black or gray or red or green or whatever the case may be. It can be whatever color she wants it to be, as long as it falls under the general principles of the hijab. And from those general principles is that the hijab is meant to cover, is meant to hide, and is not meant to attract and to draw unnecessary attention. And it lies no doubt, there's certain colors, styles, and fabrics that bring more attention than hide. So obviously those things should be avoided. So if it was my wife or my daughter, I wouldn't restrict them just to one color, but I wouldn't allow them to go outside wearing something bright and flashy. I wouldn't allow them to go outside wearing something tight. I wouldn't allow them to wear some type of fabric or style that reveals what shouldn't be revealed. But as long as it's a basic color, it's not a bright, flashy color, a flamboyant color, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you have a proof from the Quran and the authentic Sunnah stating that it has to be a specific color, then we will be pleased to see it, to implement it. And if not, then it's open. If we don't have that specific proof, then it's what? It's open. If you want to wear black, wear black. Just don't force it upon the next sister. You want to wear brown? That's fine. You want to wear green? That's fine. You having a dark red, maroon? That's fine. As long as it's not going against the specific proofs or the general principles. And that's what the hijab is. We have specific proofs and we have general principles. So a specific proof is the narration about wearing perfume outside of the house. That's a specific dalil. And we have a general principle is that the hijab is meant to cover. And it lies no doubt, many people today, unfortunately, they don't have the proper understanding of the hijab, men and women. They think that the hijab is supposed to be fashion and fashionable. They think the hijab is supposed to be an expression and I express myself. Who said that? Where is that found? That the hijab is a means of expression. Or many women, and this is a reality, unfortunately, they say, well, I became a Muslim, or I wear the hijab because it allows a man to see me for who I really am, and to look at my mind and not my body, and to like me for who I am, and so on and so forth. Part of that is true, that Islam doesn't want a woman to be a sex object, a toy, a plaything picked off of the shelf. But who said that your husband is not supposed to be physically attracted to you? Who says that? Who says that a man is not supposed to find the charm and the beauty of his wife and her body inside of the house? Who said that? Who said that when you go inside the house with your husband, you wear hijab and your husband just hears your mind and sees your mind? What is this? The hijab is not meant to take your beauty away. It's not meant to strip you of your beauty and your physical charm. It's meant to restrain it and to channel it only for those who deserve to enjoy it. Everyone understand this? My wife, I love her mind, her personality, and also her physical body. There's nothing wrong with that. That's the natural way. So many people, they become burnt out from jahiliyyah, from being used, from the industry, from modeling, from fashion, from makeup, and they go too far into the extreme. Then they have some nonsense speaker feeding them this nonsense. That's the purpose of the hijab, is to give the woman her power of her mind and to, what is this? Kalam Fadi, yani? The hijab is meant to cover the physical beauty from non-Mahrims. Period. The honor of the hijab, this, that, those are all secondary. That's the initial purpose of the hijab. Last but not least, is that the woman's hijab is oftentimes a manifestation of the man's clothing. What do you wear? How do you wear? How tight are your clothes? How revealing are your clothes? How short are your clothes? If someone walks by you, do they know you're Muslim? Can you walk here without being discriminated against? Yes, you can. You have no beard, your pants, this and that, skinny jeans, whatever the case may be. You can do whatever you want to do. But the sister, she walks down the street, 90 degrees, humidity, and she's wearing all black. How do you think she feels? How many people look at her a funny way? How many people call her a terrorist and this and that? But you can just do whatever you want to do. I go in the masjid, the brothers know me. I go in the streets, no one knows me. You want to crack on a girl? She doesn't know I'm a Muslim. You want to go do this, you want to go do that? You can just duck in and out. It's not right. So oftentimes you got to be mindful of the woman being a reflection of you. And you don't have to wear a thobe. Thobe is not obligatory. You don't have to wear an izar. That's not obligatory. You don't have to wear a kufi. That's not obligatory. But you do have to be a Muslim and identify yourself as a Muslim in your speech, your action, your character, and also your dress code. And be mindful, if you want your wife to be pious and righteous and wear this and this color, then that's how you should dress as well. You should cover yourself. You should adorn yourself. Well, that's my advice. And Allah knows best. Question says, am I from Kabul, Afghanistan? Can you please explain the hadith that states that the Prophet ﷺ was bewitched by a Jewish lady? I'm really having a hard time accepting such thing to have happened. May Allah bless you and bless all of the Muslims in Afghanistan. The answer to this question, if we don't lay down the correct principles, it's not going to do but so much. It's going to be a band-aid on a gaping wound. In general, the narrations that the Prophet ﷺ, the sihr was placed upon him, those hadiths are authentic. There's no question about that. As far as why you're having a hard time accepting it, what's the problem? Why couldn't the Prophet be put under a spell? Why not? What happens? Was the revelation lost? Was the Quran not sent down? Did Allah not say, Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, I've perfected your religion for you on this day? Was something lost from the Prophet's teachings when he was under the sihr? What's the problem of the Prophet being put under sihr? Is that your issue? Or is the issue that how could Allah be protecting him and sihr be placed upon him? Allah mentions about the prophets being what? Killed. They murdered the prophets. They killed the prophets. Allah talks about the people distorting the book, distorting the scripture. Allah allowed it. It was His permission. It was His will for these things to take place. So what is problematic with the Prophet being placed under sihr? What problem do you have with it? And that's based off of those other principles of one's mind and thinking and rationalizing things which are textually proven. So the Prophet was placed under the sihr, and the sihr did not disturb, it did not interrupt, it did not interfere with any revelation that was given to him. And there were personal issues, things on a day-to-day basis in which there was some disturbance. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He healed the Prophet. And the sihr was removed from him, and there were verses and ayats and surahs that were sent down pertaining to that incident that we benefit from today. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ وَلَا يُفْلِحُ. And Allah, He talks about the sihr and sihr. So sihr is a reality. And the last thing that I'll say is that from the proofs that sihr, that sorcery is real, is that it is still around. And if it was totally baseless and falseless, it wouldn't have survived all of these years. Every single culture has it. People from West Africa have it. People from South Africa have it. People from the Far East have it. People from India have it. People from this part. Everyone has sihr in their culture. Everyone. Whether you migrated from a country, whether your parents came from Haiti or Grenada, the Caribbean, whether your parents come from West Africa, wherever you come from, whether you're from Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic, it's sihr. That's proof that it's real. And it's been around for such a long time. It can't be absolutely false. There's a reality to it. So sihr is a reality of life. But the protection against that sihr, the reward of fighting that sihr, the means of keeping yourself free from that sihr, that is ibadah. And from Allah's wisdom is that He allowed it to happen to the Prophet to show us the reality of sihr. So if the Prophet was afflicted by sihr, how about me and you? Do I make the adhkar when I get in my car, when I go to sleep, when I wake up, when I eat, when I get dressed? Am I righteous? Am I pious? Am I reading the Quran? If the Prophet was afflicted by it, then what about me? And that's why I'm saying, Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. So there's a reality, and there's no need to have a problem accepting it unless it's based off of other false principles like we just mentioned. And Allah knows best. That's in brief. Moving forward. Question is from Toronto. Initials NR. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. Does the reward of congregational prayer and going to the masjid also apply to women? Should I strive to go to the masjid regularly? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If a woman goes to the masjid and she prays in congregation, inshallah ta'ala, she will get the reward like a man. Bi-idhnillahi azza wa jal. As far as going to the masjid, then it depends. Safety, a far distance, are you married, your parents, so on and so forth. What's important is there are many hadiths about women being in the masjid in the time of the Prophet and allowing the women to be in the masjid and not allowing the husbands to keep them from going to the masjid. And those hadiths are in Bukhari and Muslim. Wallahu alam. Question is IS from Melbourne, Australia. What's the ruling on sunnah prayer after the first adhan in Jum'ah? Better to pray or sit and wait for the rest to finish? If you come into the masjid, you've made your 2 rak'ah, you sit down, you make dhikr, you read the Quran, make dua. That's hasan, good thing to do. As far as making prayers before the second adhan, is there even a second adhan for Jumu'ah? All masjids don't offer a second adhan. But for the masjids that do offer a second adhan, and you want to pray whatever you wish to pray, then many of the ulama say there's nothing wrong with that. And they say that it's not sunnah ratiba qabliya. It's not a fixed sunnah of Jumu'ah. They say there's no fixed sunnah of Jumu'ah before. There's a fixed sunnah for after Jumu'ah, 2 or 4 rak'ah in the house. It's authentic. As far as a fixed sunnah before Jumu'ah, then they say that doesn't exist. And the generality of making the prayers between the adhans, the generalities of standing and asking Allah on the day of judgment, praying without a restricted number. But they say there's no specific fixed sunnah of Jumu'ah before Jumu'ah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. You have to prioritize that which is a benefit for you. If you want to pray, pray. If you want to sit and read the Quran, you sit and you read the Quran. You want to make dhikr, you want to make dua, you want to reflect on your sins, cry over your sins. You have to prioritize because there's nothing which is specifically, authentically established regarding that. And Allah knows best. Next question says, moving forward, Asana is RR. Where are you from, Akhi? Please mention where you're from. SA, Chiang Mai, Thailand. Assalamu alaikum. Is the hadith authentic and can I follow it? Abu Tamim Juhami was a tabi'i. It has been practiced to sometimes to sit in the mosque and address sermons, give admonition, and recite verses of the Quran. Whenever he recited a sajda verse, he performed sajda. When Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu saw that, he stopped him again and again from doing it. What he did not stop, he observed, I have offered the salah with the Prophet sallallahu Abu Bakr Umar radiallahu anhu, and they never performed sajda tilawa before sunrise after having offered their salah. Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah bless you and bless all of the Muslims in Thailand. Question is not absolutely clear. At the end of the day, when you're making the salah or when you're reading the Quran and you come across a verse in which you're supposed to make the sajda, make the sajda. Is the sajda a specific prayer in which you can't do during the prohibited times? The sajda is a sajda. And it's not necessarily a specific prayer. It's not an actual prayer. It's just a sajda. It's not a specific prayer. So whenever you're reading the Quran, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and you come across those verses, make the sajda. And if you want to wait until the times in which it's not prohibited, there's nothing wrong with that as well. There's nothing wrong with that as well. Many of the ulama of Islam say it is permissible to pray during the prohibited times if there's a reason behind that prayer. Let alone just a what? A sajda. Wallahu a'lam. That's in brief. Running out of time. Next question, or this maybe our last question. It says H. from the Bay Area, California. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. May Allah bless you and increase your knowledge. Love you for Allah. Distant family member invited me to a dead uncle year anniversary. What's your advice? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah love you for loving us for His sake. Says here, family member invited me to a dead uncle year anniversary. What's your advice? I wouldn't travel for that. You travel to visit your family during another time, not during the anniversary. There is no commemoration of someone's death in Islam. We don't commemorate someone's death. There's no anniversary for death. We're reminded of death and its reality to help us as living beings. We do not commemorate someone's death. So visit your family any other time. Do not visit them and partake in that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We will stop here. And Allah surely knows best.